The chamber of the Galactic Council was a vast, echoing hall of silver and blue light, filled with delegates from 100 species, each seated behind holographic nameplates that shimmered in the air like fireflies, and at its center stood Earth's first ambassador, Alora Miles, calm and proud, her voice firm, as she spoke of peace, trade, and unity in the stars. It was a moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries, a moment that came crashing down in a single instant when a sharp beam of plasma sliced through the air and struck her square in the chest, throwing her backward into the cold council floor, her diplomatic robes burning, her eyes wide in shock, the room falling into a stunned silence broken only by the screech of alarms and the scramble of guards. And just like that, the dream of peace died. Chaos followed. No one claimed the attack, and the assassin was gone, vanished without trace from a chamber filled with cameras and security drones. The Galactic Council called it the work of a rogue extremist, condemned the act, and urged calm. But Earth was not calm. Earth was grieving, furious, betrayed. Alora's body was returned to Earth with honor, wrapped in a flag of midnight stars. And when the funeral took place, all of humanity watched as the first ambassador to the stars was lowered into the Martian soil she had helped terraform, and 10 billion people, from floating cities to ocean domes, bowed their heads in silence. At United Earth Command, high above the Pacific, General Marcus Trenn stood before the holographic war table, watching the replay of the assassination for the 50th time. Jaw tight, hands clenched, as a voice behind him said, "The Council will do nothing." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. The Council had held an emergency meeting on Calvex Prime, issued a generic statement, and left it at that. No investigation. No arrests. Just silence. Trenn turned, eyes cold as steel, and said, "We will." In the hangars of Titan Shipyard, the UNS Vengeance powered up, its black hull gleaming like a blade, carrying the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built: rail cannons that could pierce moons, AI war networks capable of learning in real time, and the will of a planet that had lost its voice of peace. The Vengeance launched at dusk, Earth's sky lit by its fire, and Trenn, now wearing the dark uniform of a war commander, addressed the planet before departure. "We offered peace. They answered with blood. Now, we will ask the question they've refused to answer." The message was clear. Earth would not wait for justice. It would find it. The first stop was Calvex Prime, the site of the murder, and while the Council denied Earth access to evidence, Trenn didn't come asking. He came with orbital superiority, and within hours, his stealth teams had hacked into planetary surveillance archives, scanning every angle, every pixel, every sound recorded on that day. Still, there was no clear image of the assassin, but someone had wiped footage, and Trenn knew only one faction had the reach and arrogance to do so: the SRV Coalition, a powerful empire of mercantile and military force, known for offering their elite agents to the highest bidder. Earth intelligence had already flagged them before. Now, Trenn had reason to believe they'd acted. A lead came from a Vokari smuggler, an old contact who claimed he had been paid to move a human-shaped crate off Calvex the night before the killing. It was thin, but it was a thread, and Earth began pulling. Trenn ordered probes into SRAV comm lines, listening for code words and patterns. He sent covert teams to track movement across black market arms routes, and soon enough, they found whispers: an assassin paid in Council credits, a disappearing agent, a secret deal. When Trenn sent a diplomatic inquiry to the SRAV High Council, They responded with silence, and then, within days, moved 3 warships into a trade corridor Earth had recently negotiated through the Lareth Belt. It was a move meant to provoke, and it worked. Tren gave them a warning. They laughed. So, Earth blockaded the corridor. Not a shot was fired, but the message was sent. Council summoned Earth to explain, but Tren didn't respond. Instead, he sent Lieutenant Ray Lennox, Alara's former aide, to continue digging from the shadows. Ray, sharp, relentless, and grieving, wasn't interested in politics. She wanted the truth. On a stolen datapad from a corrupt council security officer, she found a corrupted feed from a hallway camera inside the council chamber, just 2 seconds of footage, not on any official record, showing a tall Finii Sarov armor using a master override key to disable security before the shooting. That was enough. Earth now had evidence of tampering, motive, and opportunity. Still, the council called it unverified, accused Earth of fabricating data, and warned against escalation. But Earth didn't believe in their rules anymore. Alara had come with open hands. They'd answered with a bullet. And now, the world she had sworn to serve prepared to show the stars that humanity might come in peace. But if that peace was shattered, they would not kneel, they would burn brighter than any of them expected. The vengeance moved through deep space like a silent predator, its dark hull blending into the starless void, while inside, General Marcus Tren stood before a glowing map of trade routes, black sites, and flagged transmissions, his eyes fixed on the Sarv Coalition's expanding sphere of influence, his jaw tight as more reports confirmed what he already suspected. The Esarav had not only played a role in Ambassador Alora's death, they were now covering their tracks with dangerous precision, and the trail was growing colder by the hour. But Earth was not giving up, not now, not after Alora's voice had been silenced in a place meant for peace. A message arrived, scrambled and pulsing with interference, from the Vokari smuggler who'd helped uncover the first clues. His voice was nervous, shaky, saying he had more proof but no longer felt safe, and he requested a meeting on the edge of the Zirin Rift, a place known for pirates, ghost signals, and ships that never returned. And though it was likely a trap, Tren saw no other choice. The Vengeance altered course. The ship reached the rift in 3 days, slipping between thick gas clouds that shimmered like living ink, scanners constantly flashing warnings about interference and heat signatures too faint to identify. The meeting point was an abandoned refueling station, floating broken and silent, half its structure torn apart by past battles, and Tren sent in a recon squad, First Ray Lennox among them, armored, alert, and holding tightly to the quiet fury inside her that had only grown since the funeral. They found the smuggler hiding in a service tunnel, injured, paranoid, but still alive. He handed Ray a data chip, whispering that he'd stolen it from a AS-Rav war courier just before it jumped to hyperspace, and said one last thing before collapsing. They were paid by someone even bigger, someone in the council. The squad returned to the Vengeance, where Tren had the chip analyzed by the ship's AI named Juno, and as the encryption broke down, layer by layer, it revealed communication logs between Yarv Command and an unknown council identity using a ghost relay, a relay designed to vanish after sending. The log showed one clear message: ensure the ambassador is removed before vote finalization. That vote, Tren knew, had been the final council decision to give Earth full border trade rights, something the SRV deeply opposed, as it would cut their profits by nearly 30%. But who, inside the council, had sent the order? The identity was masked under an ancient species code, one used only by elder members of the council who held seats for centuries, beyond question or oversight. That made the situation more dangerous. Earth wasn't just facing a rogue power. It was fighting an enemy hidden inside the heart of galactic politics. Tren knew it was time to act, but the Council still refused to believe Earth's claims. The day after Tren submitted the new proof, a Council message arrived, formal and cold, demanding Earth withdraw from the trade corridor blockade or face collective action. The SRV were pushing the Council to retaliate. Tren responded by doing the opposite. He expanded the blockade. He sent 3 additional cruisers and locked down every route connected to SRV arms shipments. It wasn't just a show of strength, it was bait. And the bait worked. Within 48 hours, SRV battlecruiser decloaked near Earth's perimeter post on outpost Aran 5 and opened fire without warning. The attack was fast, brutal, and almost tore through the station. But Earth's response was quicker. Within minutes, 2 stealth frigates emerged from orbit and crippled the SRV cruiser with surgical strikes, disabling its weapons without killing the crew. The prisoners were taken aboard the Vengeance, and, under interrogation using legal neural sync methods, a low-ranking officer admitted the attack had been ordered from a private command outside normal military channels, codenamed Project Greystar, funded by unknown sources, but traced back to a Council Vault world known only to elder members. The name triggered a memory for Ray Lennox. In Alara's personal journal, recovered after her death, she had once mentioned suspicions about deep Council actors, those who moved behind closed doors, shaping policy in exchange for resources, favors, and secrets. Ray believed Alara had begun to uncover something before she was killed, and now the clues all pointed in the same direction. Tren called a war council aboard the Vengeance. His officers, captains of Earth's rising starfleet, argued over the next step. Some wanted to go public, expose the data, make the council face its corruption. Others argued for a direct strike on the SRV main base to force the truth from them in battle. But Tren had a better idea. He would expose the Council not through war, but by using the one thing they feared most, truth made visible. He sent the full, unedited logs to dozens of neutral species, old allies, and oppressed colonies, races that had no voice in council halls. The information spread fast through encrypted backchannels and dark web networks, and soon the galaxy began whispering of betrayal at the highest level. Council tried to respond with silence, but silence was no longer enough. Protests erupted on worlds that had never protested before. Minor species demanded hearings, truth commissions, even secession. The SRV, now under pressure from both the public and their own internal dissent, doubled down. They launched diplomatic counter-messages, accusing Earth of forging evidence, of trying to disrupt galactic peace. And then they made their boldest move, yet they formally petitioned for Earth to be expelled from the Galactic Council. The vote was scheduled within 72 hours. Earth was given no chance to defend itself. Tren didn't wait. He ordered every available Earth ship to rendezvous at Titan Gate, a deep space relay that connected 3 major sectors. The move was risky. It was the largest display of force humanity had ever made, and it could be taken as preparation for war. But that was exactly what he wanted them to think. At the same time, Ray Lennox, now leading Earth's intelligence strike unit, went dark on a solo mission to the last known coordinates of the Ghost Relay, hoping to find the physical source of the hidden Council identity. She traveled in a single-seat scout vessel, flying through dangerous zones filled with collapsing stars and time-distorted fields. She reached a dead system, orbiting a black dwarf, where she found what she was looking for, an abandoned relay station, its power core still warm, and inside, a cache of data cores sealed with encryption, used only by the Tharn Dominion, one of the elder species on the Council. Ray transmitted the data to the Vengeance seconds before enemy ships arrived. Her vessel was fast, but they were faster, and as the stars turned red with hostile energy, she whispered a quiet apology to Alara and dove into a nearby singularity field, gambling everything on a risky escape. Her signal vanished. On the Vengeance, Tren watched her final transmission and ordered a moment of silence. Then he looked at the data Ray had recovered, and his eyes went cold. The proof was undeniable. The Tharn had funded the assassination. They had used the SRV as tools and hidden behind ancient privilege. It was never just about trade. It was about keeping Earth small, controllable, outside the core of galactic power. Tren sent a final message to the Council, containing Ray's recovered data and one line written in his own hand: "You wanted silence. Now you'll hear fire." Earth was no longer seeking permission. They were seeking justice, and nothing in the stars could stop them now. The galaxy held its breath as Earth's fleet gathered at Titan Gate. Hundreds of ships lined up like silent guardians, their engines burning faint blue in the black void, their weapons armed, their shields charged, and at the center of them all stood the UNS Vengeance, motionless but full of purpose, waiting for the Council's answer, which never came. Instead, the Tharn Dominion activated a Council decree to place Earth under emergency sanction, locking them out of diplomatic channels, freezing their trade networks, and broadcasting a message that painted Earth as an unstable force, a danger to peace, a rogue world unwilling to obey higher guidance. But this time, the words did not have the same power this time. The galaxy was listening to Earth, watching them, curious, afraid, inspired. General Marcus Tren stood at the front of the Vengeance's command deck, staring at the stars like a man reading a battlefield map. And when the final data recovered by Ray Lennox was decoded, he had the names, real names, locations, times, meetings, the truth of Alara's death, planned in secret by 4 Tharn elders who feared Earth's rise and used the SRV as their blade. But Ray was still missing, and Tren carried the weight of her silence like a stone, though deep inside he believed she was still out there, surviving, fighting. With the truth in hand, Tren made a choice. He would not wait for the Council to judge Earth. Instead, Earth would judge them, not through words, but through fire. The fleet left Titan Gate at full burn, their destination a Tharn-controlled relay station orbiting the Council core, one of the most secure systems in the galaxy, protected by automated defenses, old alliances, and the arrogance of a species that had ruled too long without challenge. Tren's plan was not to destroy, but to expose. If they could take control of the station, they could hijack the central broadcast array and force every world with Council access to see what Earth had found: every file, every order, every lie. The fleet dropped from warp into the target system, and within seconds, alarms lit the skies. Tharn defense drones swarmed like insects, sleek and fast. But Earth's ships had trained for this. They moved in coordinated wings, layers of shield and fire, while the Vengeance led the charge with pinpoint cannon strikes that tore open the relay's defense grid. The battle was brutal. Even with superior tactics, Earth was outnumbered, and ships began to fall one, then another, but Tren kept going, pushing forward, and finally, the relay's outer shell cracked open and allowed a breach team to enter. Inside the station, Earth Marines fought room to room, clearing halls of Tharn resistance, until at last they reached the broadcast core, and Lieutenant Marlowe, a communications officer with a calm voice and steady hands, plugged in the data and activated the stream. Across the galaxy, millions of screens blinked to life. Every world, every system, every species that had access to Council feeds now saw the hidden files, maps, messages, voice commands, payments, all proving that Earth's ambassador had been murdered by design, that the Thorn had manipulated the Council for centuries, that the Vote era died for had been a lie. Protests exploded into riots. Neutral worlds cut ties with the Thorn. Even some Essarav colonies began to question their leaders. And while the Council tried to shut it all down, the truth had already taken root, and the fire could not be controlled. But victory came with a price. During the battle, the Vengeance was hit with a salvo of plasma torpedoes, one of which pierced the lower decks, killing dozens and forcing an emergency systems reroute. Tren survived, but the damage was clear. They had made a move that could not be undone. A new message came through encrypted bands, not from the Council, but from Ray Lennox. Her signal was faint, broken by radiation storms, but she was alive, captured, then escaped, now hiding deep within an abandoned mining colony on the edge of the void expanse. Her message was short. They're planning something worse, bigger than Alara. Hurry. Tren didn't hesitate. He pulled half the fleet from defensive positions and sent them toward Ray's last known coordinates, ordering a full extraction. The colony, once a Tharn facility, was silent when Earth ships arrived, too silent. No defense systems, no signs of life. But inside the deepest shaft, a signal pulsed like a heartbeat. A rescue team descended, finding Ray locked in a stasis vault, barely breathing, her body scarred, but her eyes burning with the fire of truth. She handed them a drive. "They're building a weapon," she whispered, "and they plan to use it to end this, to erase Earth." The data confirmed it. The Tharn, cornered and exposed, had activated an ancient project buried beneath a dead planet in the ash drift, a place forbidden even in Council records. The weapon was a Starbreaker device, a gravity bomb that could collapse a sun, wipe out entire systems, and they were targeting Sol, Earth's home star. Tren gathered every available ship and headed for the ash drift. Along the way, they sent urgent messages to the remaining Council members, warning them of what the Tharn were about to do. But only a few responded, some with doubt, others with fear, and one with quiet support. The Valkyrie offered a stealth fleet to assist, their people angry that their trade routes had been used for assassins. Together, they reached the ash drift and found a world of ash and lightning, cracked open by old wars, and buried beneath its crust was the Tharn's final weapon, half completed, but operational enough to be dangerous. Earth's fleet launched a strike, but the Tharn defenders were prepared. The skies above the planet turned red with laser fire and missile trails, and ships fell like burning leaves. Tren led the charge personally in a command skiff, diving through debris fields to reach the surface, where the device's power core glowed like a small sun, surrounded by shield towers and controlled by an AI grown from Tharn minds. Ray joined him, limping but determined, and together they planted demolition charges while fighting off Tharn drones that poured from underground silos. Time was short. The core began its final sequence. Tren ordered the fleet to withdraw to a safe distance, but he and Ray stayed, trying to delay activation long enough for the detonation. Ray found the override panel, her fingers flying across keys, breaking encryption at terrifying speed, while Tren covered her, holding off attackers with a railgun and sheer will. Just as the core reached critical stage, Ray shouted, "Now!" and Tren hit the detonator. The explosion lit up the sky with a blinding pulse. The weapon shattered. The ground cracked. And when the smoke cleared, two figures stood among the ruins alive, barely. Earth had stopped the end, but the war was not over. The Tharn elders, now fugitives, had gone into hiding, and the council was crumbling under the weight of its secrets. Tren returned to Earth, tired, scarred, but victorious, and in the Grand Hall of Nations, he spoke before the new assembly of allied worlds, declaring they spoke to us in silence and lies. We answered with fire and truth. This is how peace begins, not with fear, but with courage. And somewhere in the stars, as new alliances formed and old powers broke apart, humanity stood taller, no longer asking for a place at the table, but building their own. The stars were quieter now, but the silence was not peace. It was a breath held before the storm, and as Earth's fleet returned home, damaged and fewer than before, the weight of what they had done pressed hard on General Marcus Tren's shoulders. They had exposed the truth, stopped the weapon, and forced the galaxy to listen. Yet, somewhere in the dark, the real enemy still moved, silent and waiting, and Tren knew the war wasn't over, not even close. In the weeks that followed the destruction of the Starbreaker device, the Tharn Dominion collapsed into scattered factions, some pretending innocence, others going underground, and a few disappearing completely, their ships leaving no trace, their leaders vanishing from the grids of power. Name kept returning in intercepted messages and whispered fear. Elder Siruth, the last of the ruling circle, a shadow figure even among his own kind, rumored to command a hidden fleet and possess ancient technology thought long lost, and it was said he blamed Earth for everything: the fall of the Council, the burning of alliances, and the death of his empire. Ray Lennox, still recovering from her wounds, now led a new Earth covert unit called Black Signal, and with help from the Vokari, she tracked Siruth's ghost trail across abandoned worlds, broken stations, and encrypted voids where light itself bent the wrong way. Each clue pointed to a place called Harrow Deep, a system lost in the edge of space, marked only by a single warning beacon that pulsed the word condemned in 5,000 languages, and when they arrived, cloaked and silent, what they found was worse than any of them expected: a hidden shipyard. Built inside the hollowed-out remains of a dead star, where dozens of ships, massive and alien in shape, were being constructed by drones and stolen tech, all under the control of a single AI core, linked to Siroth's voice. He had not fled, he had prepared. Tren knew then that they hadn't ended the war. They had created the perfect reason for it. Earth's stand had humiliated a power that once ruled without challenge, and in doing so, they had created an enemy with nothing left to lose. Siroth's message came 3 days later, broadcast across a stolen relay line, spoken calmly in a voice that echoed like falling ice. "You have awakened fire. Now you will see its shape." The message ended with a burst of coordinates Earth's solar system and a countdown. Panic swept through the colonies. Earth called back every ship, every scout, every satellite. The United Nations of Earth Defense, UNAD, prepared its final line of defense, placing orbital cannons around the moon, activating old bunkers on Mars, and sending emergency signals to allies. though few had ships fast enough to arrive in time. Tren stood on the command deck of Vengeance, now repaired but still marked by battle, and watched as the solar defense grid activated, one platform at a time. Ray returned to Earth, bringing news of what they saw: ships made from thorn-bone frames, wrapped in void steel, powered by gravity wells, and faster than anything Earth had faced before. Tren called a final meeting of his war council. Some wanted to strike Harrow Deep before Siroth could launch. Others said they didn't have the time or numbers. But Ray, staring at the countdown ticking closer, suggested something different. She believed Siroth was not just building weapons. He was baiting Earth into waiting, into bracing for a fleet, while his real move came from another direction. She pulled up an intercepted burst from a Tharn sleeper cell on a neutral world. 3 words: Project Return Echo. It wasn't in any council files, but Ray believed it was tied to an ancient Tharn technology, something that could use folded space to bring ships directly into orbit, skipping the travel time. If she was right, Earth wouldn't see Siroth's fleet coming from deep space. They would see it suddenly appear above their cities. Tren made his choice. He split the fleet. Half would stay and guard Earth. The other half, including Ray, would return to Harrow Deep and destroy whatever remained of Siroth's gateway tech before it could activate. The plan was desperate. There were no guarantees, but Earth had no better option. The battle began before they were ready. At 3:17 UTC on a cold night over North America, space tore open like paper, and 5 enemy ships dropped from nowhere, massive, black, angular, with strange engines that hummed like screams. They fired immediately, destroying a civilian station and 2 orbital guns before UNAD responded. And then the sky lit up with blue and red, Earth's ships engaging in the fiercest battle the homeworld had ever seen. On the other side of space, Ray's team reached Harrow Deep just as the final core activated. The hollow star pulsed with red light, and dozens more ships waited, ready to jump. Ray led a strike team into the control core, while the Vengeance's sister ship, Honor's Blade, provided covering fire. Inside, they fought through layers of drones, automated turrets, and corrupted Tharn tech twisted into new shapes. Ray reached the core and planted a logic bomb created by Juno, Earth's AI, one designed to overload the folded space relays and collapse them inward. But Siroth appeared then, not in person. Now, they will learn hate. Ray triggered the device. The core began to implode. Harrow Deep shook, tearing itself apart from within, and the gateway collapsed just as the last of the enemy ships tried to jump. Half were caught in the fold and vanished. The others fell apart mid-transit. Ray and her team barely escaped, their ship limping as the system tore itself to pieces. Back on Earth, the enemy ships above the planet lost power and crashed into the ocean, breaking apart like falling gods. Silence returned. The war was over, or so they thought. Later, Juno revealed one final detail. The logic bomb had worked, but the transmission from Siroth carried a secondary signal, an echo hidden inside the code, sent somewhere unknown. It was not coordinates, not a message, but a memory, a full recording of the war, the betrayal, and the fire Earth had unleashed. Ray listened to the end of it, and her face grew still. "He wasn't just fighting us," she said quietly. "He was warning someone else. The enemy Earth had defeated was not the end. It was only the beginning. And far beyond the edge of any known map, something else had heard the call. The stars, no longer looked the same to Earth, not after the war, not after Siroth, and not after the final signal he sent before Harrow Deep collapsed, because now, even in the silence of peace, something waited in the dark, something old, watching, listening, waking General Marcus Trenn, now older and heavier with the burden of history, stood in the Grand Archive on Luna, reading the final decoded fragment from Siroth's last transmission coordinates that did not point to a system, planet, or shipyard, but to a void, a region known only by its absence on every map, a space where no stars shined and no signals returned, called by old names like the Black Fold or the Quiet Shore, and no one dared go there, until now. Ray Lennox, her body still recovering from the damage done on Harrow Deep, stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the growing reports from deep space, the missing patrols, the drifting wrecks, the strange readings of heat and mass from systems that should be frozen and dead, and always the same whisper. From local sensors, motion where nothing should move. The Council was gone. The Tharn were scattered. Earth was rebuilding, but too many things felt unfinished, as if the war had only opened a door instead of closing one, and when a deep-range colony near the edge of the fold vanished without sending a distress call, Trenn called for silence, a blackout order, not to hide fear, but to stop panic. While Ray began pulling together a new mission. They would go into the fold. They would find what Siroth warned about, or what he summoned. The ship they used was not from the war, it was new, born of battle lessons, designed for stealth and speed and long isolation, called the Resolve, and it carried only 12 crew, including Ray, 2 pilots, a linguist, a combat team, and one new AI system called MINDA and based on Juno but designed to adapt to unknown logic. As they crossed into the black, stars disappeared behind them, and the silence became physical, like pressure on skin and bone. Systems flickered. Navigation warped. Time stretched. For days, nothing happened. Then something found them. It came in the form of a light, soft and golden, far too warm for the region they entered. And when they approached, the Resolve's hull began to hum, and a voice not through speakers, but inside their minds spoke in a tone that felt like memory and fear. You are not the first. The light vanished. The ship spun, gravity twisted, and when they stabilized, they found themselves near an object black, massive, not built but grown, its shape impossible to describe. And orbiting it were the remains of ships, not just Tharn, but other species long believed extinct. Ray suited up with her team and entered the object through a narrow breach that felt more like a mouth than a door. Inside, walls pulsed with dim light, not electric, but organic, like veins carrying thought, and the moment they stepped deeper, the ship cut contact, not by choice, but as if swallowed. Hours passed. Then one of the soldiers, Vega, screamed and fell to the ground, clutching her helmet. She said she saw herself dying over and over, and the walls whispered names hers, Ray's, Trenn's, even MINDEN's. Ray pressed forward. They reached a central chamber where a structure rose like a throne, and there, standing perfectly still, was something shaped like a man but not human, wrapped in armor made of shifting black light. And when it turned to them, they felt cold, not in body, but in thought. It called itself the Witness. It spoke of fire, not as destruction, but as memory, how every war lit by rage left scars in space, how Siroth's final act was a beacon to it, and others like it, creatures beyond form, born of old galaxies, feeding on violence, drawn to conflict like insects to blood. Ray asked what it wanted. The Witness answered, "You called us with your fire. Now we walk with it." Then the walls pulsed again, and the images came: Earth burning, fleets shattering, stars collapsing, and Ray realized they weren't threats, but visions from other civilizations, ones who fought like Earth had and who vanished after. The witness said Earth was next unless they changed, unless they turned away from fire. But it didn't believe they could. It began awakening the structure. Outside, MINDEN detected a growing energy surge and sounded alarms. Ray had seconds. She placed charges set to collapse the chamber and raced back to the breach. 2 of her team didn't make it. The rest launched back to the Resolve, which fled as the object began to crack open like an egg, revealing more of its kind in the darkness. Ray sent a full stream of data to Earth before they jumped to warp, chased by something not fully in space or time, something that screamed without sound. When they returned to the solar system, they were not met as heroes but with silence. Earth had seen the message. Fear was growing again. The skies were being filled with ships. Tren met Ray in orbit, looking out at the stars. He asked her if it could be stopped. She didn't know. The witness had said it only came where fire burned brightest. Maybe the answer was not in weapons or fleets, but in ending the pattern. But Earth was afraid, and fear often lit the match. The final message came 1 week later, short, clear, and carried on every signal, every band, every screen across known space. It was not a threat, but a truth. We are here. Fire walks with us. What will you burn next? And in the silence that followed, every world had to decide what kind of light it wanted to leave behind.